How do I stop masturbating so much? You guys, this is a question that I get all the time in my practice, and I'm excited to talk with you guys about it today. The fact that people are asking this question actually makes me happy because it's something that doesn't often get talked about. So today, I'm going to talk with you about some of the psychological things that go on with trying to stop masturbating, and I'm going to give you a couple of little tips that'll help you to try to continue to fight the battle that you're trying to fight if you're looking to stop masturbating. Guys, I'm Tyler, your wandering therapist, and we're talking about masturbation today. While I'm out here on this beautiful sunrise with the snow-capped mountains behind me, I was thinking about this question because I get this question all the time in my practice. And I want to talk with you guys a little bit before we talk about how to stop. I want to talk about a little bit about the reasons why we might want to stop, and also some of the psychological things that go on that keep us stuck from stopping. So if you look at it for most people, and I'm going to talk mostly maybe to the men today a little bit, but it could be anybody. We often start our masturbation patterns way earlier than we realize that we're actually masturbating. For kids, for toddlers, it's pretty normal for them to touch themselves, to play with themselves, to find a source of comfort in their private parts as they explore their bodies and learn a little bit about their sexuality. And then as we become young adults and teenagers, we start to hit maturation. We find out that our bodies feel really good and that they actually give a response. I can't tell you how many people I've worked with or talked to that found masturbation experimentally and thought that it just helped them go to sleep at night or helped them cope with boredom, and didn't even realize that what they were doing was masturbating until they were educated a little bit later on as they got older. And so what happens is that something that feels good to us, something that we actually use to explore our bodies and is maybe part of actually our learning process, it becomes something that we eventually depend on too much, and it's the dependence on the masturbation that becomes the problem for us, because then we feel weak and we feel like we can't stop something, and we also, for a lot of people, don't feel very good about ourselves after we masturbate. And there's a whole bunch of different reasons for that, which we'll probably have to shoot some videos on in the future about shame and culture and all of that. But if you're watching this video, it's because you're wanting to stop masturbating. And I would submit to you that one of the things that's probably holding you back is the way you view yourself because you masturbate. A lot of people who want to stop masturbating are viewing themselves in a negative light. They see themselves as weak or as bad or as inadequate or as dirty or as unworthy. And the actual view that goes along with it is what's keeping you stuck. Because that view that you have, that view that you're dirty or bad or unlovable or weak or inadequate, is fueling shame. And shame, even though we try to shame ourselves into doing things all the time, and even though the world operates in a place of shame, it's actually the least helpful thing in making changes. Shame is better at reproducing the same negative results than it is positive results, because we end up feeling bad about ourselves, and when we end up feeling hopeless and helpless, we say, oh well, what the hell, and we end up right back in the same place that we were trying to stop. And so if you're looking at yourself and saying, I'm a bad person because I masturbate, or I'm weak, or I'm inadequate, that's one of the places that we have to shift things. We have to start challenging that belief and saying, no, I'm a human being, and I'm engaging in something that isn't helpful for me, but it doesn't make me a bad person. The reason I'm wanting to change isn't to make myself a better person. The reason I'm wanting to change is because it's not effective in my life. It's having a negative impact in my life. And if we can start to shift that, it would change the reason why we change, and the reason will help us to actually do better at holding it. Because now we're not judging ourselves. We're actually seeing ourselves as, people who are potential at growing and getting better and stronger, instead of thinking that we're bad and that we're terrible for doing the things that we're doing. So the first thing that we talk about here is the shift in mindset. Can I shift from a place of judgment to a place of curiosity and understanding? And can I shift from a place of being fixed in my mindset to a place of understanding that I'm a continual work in progress, and I'm here to simply just grow, and that this is part of my next step of growth? If I view myself in that perspective, I'm going to be more likely to then go and set the limits that I need to set, make the changes that I need to make, and recommit to the things that I'm going to need to recommit to, because this is going to be a process. The hard thing about masturbation when we want to stop is that the habit is right there in front of us. It's this far away, right? And And so it's different than finding a drug or pornography. It's attached to our own bodies, and so it's a lot easier to have access to it, and so there's a little bit more work in trying to figure out how to stop it. So one of the things that I suggest is to recognize, when am I most likely to engage in masturbation if I want to stop? And for most people, if you start to sit down and actually break it down with curiosity, you'll find that there's often certain triggers that make me more likely to engage in it. And the most common ones are things like bored, angry, lonely, tired, stressed, hungry. If I get a combination of those things, I'm more prone to end up then going and isolating myself. And when I isolate myself emotionally and physically, and I'm feeling those negative things, I'm more likely to engage in this behavior that I'm trying to stop, because it's become more about emotional coping than actual some type of pleasurable experience or healing. And so if I'm aware of those things, now I can start to build into my life some patterns with that awareness, where I can start taking care of those physical needs in terms of my hunger, or I can start learning skills to manage my emotions in terms of the anger, or I can start learning to live life on life's terms by practicing mindfulness. And when I practice mindfulness, it allows me to then have my choice back instead of be on autopilot with the habits that are simply in place. So here are a few things that some of the guys that I work with who have been working on this for a long time have done. Number one, they practice a lot of self-compassion. They challenge all those negative beliefs about themselves, and they do it on a regular, multiple times a day basis sometimes. We'll talk about self-compassion in another video here. They learn to set new targets and behaviors to break the autopilot that they've developed over the years in terms of the habit loop. So when we form habits, it doesn't take any brain power for us to follow through on a habit. And so for most of us who have experienced masturbation, once it's become a habit, you don't have to really think a lot about it, so your brain is on autopilot there. So you have to build into your life what we would call some bottom lines. And the bottom lines are going to be breaks in that pattern. They're going to be intentional breaks that I'm going to set for myself so that I can have some speed bumps in the habit loop where I might catch myself. So for instance, if I have an issue with masturbation where I tend to go into the bathroom by myself and masturbate when I get home from school, if I'm a high school kid, I'm probably going to want to set some type of limit or shift in my pattern about how I use the bathroom or what I take with me when I go into the bathroom. A lot of people that I work with have a problem at nighttime. They actually use masturbation as their sleeping pill, where they'll masturbate because it helps them feel calm, and then when they're calm, they can shut their brain off and they go to sleep at night. So making the shift in what my nightly routine looks like becomes really important in changing that pattern for masturbation. I've had guys, and this might sound extreme, and I'm not saying everybody should do this, but I've had guys set bottom lines where they actually wear a certain kind of glove to bed at night just so that it doesn't happen automatically in their sleep, just for the sake of trying to break up some of those patterns. So identify your own patterns. When is it most common? What are the factors that seem to be driving it? Can I mitigate those factors in any way? And can I break the pattern that I typically follow? And if I can set some of those bottom lines, set those intentions, and then stick to them, and if I break them, recommit to them, eventually I form a new habit over the top, and I no longer have the need to follow through with the autopilot. So you guys, best of luck. I'd love to hear what you're doing to overcome your own struggles with it, what things have worked for you, and thank you guys for being here. Thank you so much for being here with me. If you found this to be valuable for you, please hit the like and subscribe button. If you're facing particular struggles that you need help with or roadblocks that you're running into, please submit a question. I'd be happy to answer it for you.